The distress signal cut through the bridge of the Starlight like a knife through bone. Captain Daniel Harris didn't need to check the coordinates. He already knew. Colony 7. His hands moved across the console before his mind caught up, pulling the ship out of faster-than-light travel with a violence that rattled every bolt in the hull. The viewport filled with debris, not asteroids, not natural. Bodies, thousands of them, floating in the vacuum like discarded toys, children still clutching stuffed animals, parents frozen mid-scream. The agricultural dome that had housed 200,000 souls now hung in pieces, spinning lazily against the stars. Lieutenant Karen Brooks vomited into her helmet. Harris didn't blame her. He wanted to join her. Life signs? His voice came out steady. Years of training held him together when everything else wanted to fall apart. None, sir. The scanner operator, a kid named Tommy Chen, barely 22 years old, stared at his screen with dead eyes. They're all gone, every single one. The communications array crackled. Not human. The Zinthari frequency. Harris recognized it immediately. Those sanctimonious bastards had been humanity's primary contact with the galactic community for 15 years. They taught humans the rules, the protocols, how civilized species behaved. Human vessel, you are in violation of Galactic Preservation Zone Theta 9. Withdraw immediately or face sanctions. Harris looked at the bodies, at the shredded habitat, at what remained of humanity's largest farming colony. 3 generations had lived there, families, artists, scientists, people who'd never fired a weapon in their lives. Sir, detecting Zinthari warships on approach, 4 cruisers. They're powering weapons. The pieces fell together with horrible clarity. The Zinthari hadn't just allowed this, they'd done it. The agricultural output from Colony 7 had been cutting into their trade monopoly for months. Humanity had filed complaints through proper channels, followed every rule, been civilized. Harris opened a channel, not to the Zinthari, to Earth, to Command, to every human colony scattered across 12 star systems. This is Captain Daniel Harris of the Starlight. Colony 7 is gone, 200,000 dead. The Zinthari are responsible. He paused, looking at Karen, at Tommy, at his crew. They all nodded. I'm engaging. Captain, you can't! Tommy's professionalism cracked. The Galactic Council will declare us hostile. We'll lose everything. All our treaties, our trade agreements, our position. We already lost everything. Harris armed every weapon the Starlight carried. It wasn't a warship, just a survey vessel with light defensive capabilities. It wouldn't be enough. He knew that. Those people down there followed every rule, trusted the system, believed civilization meant something. The Zinthari cruisers moved into formation, confident. Humanity had always backed down before. Harris thought of his sister. She'd lived on Colony 7 with her husband and 2 daughters. 8 and 10 years old, he wondered which frozen body was theirs. All hands, battle stations. Target, lead cruiser. Full power to forward batteries. Earth's response came through 30 seconds later. Admiral Patricia Kane's face filled the screen, and Harris saw something he'd never seen before in his commanding officer's eyes. Pure, cold rage. All human vessels, all colonies, all stations. You are hereby released from Galactic Accord's compliance. Rules of engagement are suspended. Priority Alpha 1 has been declared. Harris smiled without humor. Priority Alpha 1, the code they'd created but never thought they'd use. The one that meant civilization had failed. That being cultured hadn't protected them, that humanity was done asking permission. The Starlight's weapons fired first. The battle for humanity's future had begun, and this time they weren't going to follow anyone's rules but their own. Admiral Patricia Kane stood in the war room beneath Geneva, surrounded by screens showing every human asset in known space. 73 colonies, 218 ships, 15 million people spread across the stars. Against them, the Galactic Council controlled 6,000 worlds and fleets that outnumbered humanity 1,000 to 1. The math didn't matter anymore. Ma'am, we're receiving responses from the colonies. They want confirmation. Colonel Greg Martinez pulled up the data streams. They're asking if this is really happening, if we're really going to war with the entire galaxy. Kane didn't hesitate. Send confirmation. Priority Alpha 1 stands. Every human carries the right to defend themselves by any means necessary. The Galactic Accords are void. We signed those treaties believing the Council would protect us. They killed Colony 7 instead. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Humanity had spent 15 years building relationships, establishing trade, learning to fit into galactic society. They'd followed rules designed by species millions of years older, accepted restrictions on their military, trusted in diplomacy. 200,000 corpses proved how much that trust was worth. Intelligence reports coming in. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster highlighted sectors across the star map. Zinthari fleets are mobilizing across the frontier. They're not hiding it. Looks like they expected us to file a formal complaint and wait for the Council to investigate. How long would that take? Kane asked, though she already knew. Standard Council investigation timeline is 18 to 36 months. Then another 12 to 24 months for tribunal proceedings. Assuming they even ruled against the Zinthari, penalties would likely be economic sanctions. Amy's voice dripped contempt. Meanwhile, our people float in space. Kane pulled up the footage from the Starlight sensors. She forced herself to watch it. Every person in this room needed to see it, needed to remember why they were about to throw away everything humanity had built in the stars. The bodies told the story. Precise weapons fire, military targeting. This wasn't pirates or raiders. The Zinthari had used their fleet to execute civilians. Men, women, children. All because Colony 7's farms were too efficient. Get me Director Chen at Intelligence. Kane waited for the connection. I want everything. Every scrap of data we've collected on Council species. Military capabilities, political structures, economic dependencies. And I want the black files. Greg looked up sharply. Ma'am, those are theoretical weapon systems. None of them have been tested. Most violate multiple sections of the Accords. The Accords are dead, Colonel. We just haven't announced the funeral yet. Kane's terminal chimed. Director Helen Chen appeared looking like she hadn't slept in days. She probably hadn't. Helen, tell me we have options. We have options. Helen pulled up classified files that made several officers in the room pale. You're not going to like most of them. We've been constrained by Council regulations for 15 years. Weapons development, ship design, tactical doctrine. All of it built around their rules. I'm listening. The Council bans kinetic weapons above certain velocities. They ban autonomous combat systems. They ban biological agents, nanite swarms, and what they call indiscriminate area denial systems. Their fleets are designed to fight each other using agreed-upon limitations. Kane saw where this was going. We're not signatories anymore. Exactly. We've been hobbling ourselves. Our ships are slower because we followed their drive regulations. Our weapons are weaker because we followed their limitation treaties. Our tactics are predictable because we trained using their approved methods. Helen smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. But we've also been human. We've been cataloguing every loophole, every theoretical system, every technique they banned, just in case. How fast can we implement? The Prometheus initiative can be operational in 72 hours. We've had the prototypes ready for years. We just needed authorization to build them. Kane didn't recognize the name. Prometheus initiative. Helen pulled up schematics that made Kane's blood run cold and her heart sing at the same time. Ships that looked nothing like humanity's current fleet. Sleek, fast, covered in weapon systems that would make Council admirals scream about war crimes. We stole fire from the gods once, Helen said quietly. We can do it again. Back on the Starlight, Daniel Harris watched his ship die around him. The Zinthari cruisers had torn through their shields in the first volley. The second had breached the hull in 4 places. The third had killed engineering and half the crew. But the Starlight wasn't retreating. Couldn't retreat. Because while the Zinthari had better ships and more experience, they'd never fought anyone who didn't care about dying, who cared more about making the enemy pay. Karen, status on the reactor. Daniel's console was mostly dark, life support failing, weapons offline, engines gone. Containment at 15%. We've got maybe 5 minutes before it goes critical. Karen coughed, blood on her lips. Shrapnel from the second hit had torn through her suit. She was dying, and they both knew it. Tommy, can you steer? Maneuvering thrusters only? I can give you one direction change. That's it. Daniel looked at the tactical display. The lead Zinthari cruiser hung 3 kilometers away, weapons charging for the killing blow. They were taking their time, making sure the Starlight's destruction was recorded, proof that humans who broke the rules got crushed. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Set course for the lead cruiser. Maximum thrust on my mark. Sir, we'll impact their shields. Won't even scratch them. Tommy didn't argue, though. He was already programming the burn. Not going for their shields. Daniel smiled. Karen, when I give the word, drop all containment on the reactor. Everything. All at once. Understanding dawned on her face. Suicide run. They'll vaporize us before we get close. Maybe, but they're arrogant. They think we'll surrender, that we'll beg for mercy like civilized people. Daniel opened a channel to the Zinthari flagship. This is Captain Harris. I'd like to discuss terms of surrender. The Zinthari commander appeared on screen. Reptilian features arranged in what passed for a smile among his species. Wise choice, human. Power down your remaining systems and prepare to be boarded. You will be tried for violation of Preservation Zone regulations. Actually, I have a counter-offer. Daniel's hand hovered over the thruster control. Go to hell. The Starlight's engines fired, all of them. Everything left. The ship lurched forward, accelerating toward the Zinthari cruiser. Tommy worked the thrusters with desperate precision, keeping them on target as the Zinthari scrambled to respond. Weapons fire tore through the Starlight's hull. Daniel felt the ship shaking apart around him. Karen slumped in her seat. Gone. Tommy screamed as his console exploded. But they were close now. So close. For Colony 7, Daniel whispered, and dropped the reactor containment. The explosion lit up the sector like a newborn star. When the sensors cleared, the Zinthari flagship was gone. Just debris and radiation. The other 3 cruisers broke formation, retreating at maximum speed. They'd learned something today. Humanity didn't surrender, didn't beg, didn't follow rules that got their people killed. On Earth, Patricia Kane watched the footage of the Starlight's final moments. Watched a survey ship take down a warship 10 times its size through sheer human stubbornness and rage. Around the room, officers stood in silence. Get me the Secretary General, Kane said quietly. It's time to make an announcement. The emergency session of what remained of the United Earth government convened within the hour. Secretary General Marcus Webb looked like he'd aged 10 years in a day. He probably had. Admiral Kane, you're asking me to authorize total war against the Galactic Council. Do you understand what that means? We'll be facing species that have been spacefaring for millions of years, technology we can barely comprehend, fleets that outnumber us by factors we don't have names for. Kane nodded slowly. I understand perfectly, sir. I'm also telling you that if we don't do this, humanity is finished. The Zinthari didn't attack Colony 7 because of trade disputes. They attacked because we were getting too successful, too independent. They want us afraid, compliant, willing to accept our place as the galaxy's newest servant species. You're speculating. I'm reading the pattern. Kane pulled up intelligence reports. In the last 6 months, the Council has rejected 12 applications for human colony expansion. They've imposed new tariffs on our exports. They've restricted our access to advanced technology we need for terraforming. And now they've killed 200,000 of us and expected us to file paperwork about it. Webb rubbed his face. If we do this, we might lose everything. We've already lost everything that matters. Kane gestured to the screens showing Colony 7. Those people trusted the system, believed civilization would protect them. They died because we were too cultured to fight back. The room erupted in arguments, representatives from the colonies demanding action, Earth-based politicians arguing for restraint, military officers calculating odds that didn't look good. Through it all, Kane stood silent, waiting. Finally, Webb raised his hand. The room fell quiet. "Admiral Kane, if I authorize this, can we win?" Kane thought about the Prometheus Initiative, about the weapons and ships humanity had designed but never built, about 15 years of studying every council species, learning their weaknesses, finding the gaps in their defenses, about what humans did best when their backs were against the wall. We can make them regret starting this fight. Webb stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Draft the announcement. We'll broadcast on all channels, council frequencies included." 2 hours later, every screen in human space showed the same message. Marcus Webb stood before the camera, looking directly into the lens. Behind him, the United Earth flag hung beside imagery of Colony 7. Before and after. To the Galactic Council, the Zinthari Empire, and all species who claim to represent civilization in this galaxy. This is Secretary General Marcus Webb of United Earth. I am addressing you to inform you of a change in humanity's diplomatic status. Kane watched from the war room as Webb delivered the words they'd crafted together. Short, direct, no apologies. For 15 years we have followed your rules. We have restricted our expansion, limited our military, and submitted to your regulations. We did this because we believed in the principles you claim to represent: justice, peace, cooperation among thinking beings. The feed cut to footage of Colony 7, the bodies, the destroyed habitats, the children. Today, the Zinthari Empire murdered 200,000 human civilians in an unprovoked attack on an agricultural colony. They did this because our farms were too efficient, because we were becoming too self-sufficient, because they wanted to remind us of our place. Back to Webb, his face carved from stone. We're done being reminded. We're done following rules designed to keep us weak. We're done being civilized according to standards written by species who murder children over trade disputes. Kane felt the atmosphere in the war room change. This was it, the moment humanity stepped off the cliff. Effective immediately, United Earth withdraws from all Galactic Council treaties and agreements. We no longer recognize Council authority over human space. We no longer accept Council limitations on our technology or military. We no longer consider ourselves bound by any agreement we made while under the implicit threat of violence. The implications rippled out, every restriction lifted, every weapon system authorized, every tactic previously banned now fair game. To the Zinthari Empire specifically, we delivered this message. You wanted to teach us a lesson. You wanted to show us what happens when we forget our place. Lesson received. Now we're going to teach you one. Webb leaned closer to the camera. We're humans. We climbed out of caves and reached the stars. We've survived ice ages, plagues and wars that should have ended us. We've split atoms and mapped genomes and built machines that think. We did all of that while killing each other over resources and territory and ideas. His smile was terrible. Imagine what we'll do when we're united against you. The broadcast ended. Across human space, colonies began mobilizing. Ships that had been exploratory vessels received weapons packages. Stations that had been trading posts became fortresses. The Prometheus Initiative went from classified project to active production. In the Zinthari capital, the High Command watched the broadcast with growing unease. They'd expected humanity to back down, to negotiate, to be reasonable. They'd forgotten that reasonable was a luxury species adopted when they felt safe. Humanity didn't feel safe anymore. The war had begun. Helen Chen stood in the fabrication facility beneath Luna's surface, watching the first Prometheus-class vessel take shape. It looked wrong, predatory, nothing like the sleek, Council-approved designs humanity had been building. How long until the fleet is ready? Kane had come down personally to inspect the progress. First wave of 30 ships will launch in 60 hours. We're building them fast, but they're not elegant. The Council designs their vessels like art. These are just weapons. Kane ran her hand along the hull plating. It felt rough, aggressive, covered in sensor-absorbing materials that would make Council commanders nervous. Good. We're not here to win beauty contests. The Prometheus-class ships were built around a simple philosophy. Hit hard, move fast, don't get caught. They carried weapons the Council had banned centuries ago. Kinetic kill vehicles that moved at percentages of light speed. Nanite swarms that could eat through hull plating like acid. Autonomous hunter drones that didn't care about pilot safety because there were no pilots. We're going to be called war criminals, Helen said quietly. The Council has laws, rules of engagement. These ships violate all of them. They called us barely civilized when we joined. Primitive, violent, said we needed to learn how civilized species behaved. Kane watched assembly drones weld armor plating into place. Maybe they were right to be afraid. The tactical briefing began at 06000 Geneva time. Every human military officer above the rank of major attended, either in person or via quantum link. Kane stood at the head of the room, staring at a star map that showed the extent of human space. Tiny, insignificant compared to Council territory. Current situation, the Zinthari have mobilized 80% of their fleet. They're assuming we'll defend our colonies and force them to come to us. Standard siege tactics worked for them for the last 1,000 years. Kane highlighted their fleet positions. They're wrong. Greg Martinez pulled up the operational plan they'd been developing. We're not defending. We're attacking. Shock rippled through the room. Veteran officers who'd fought in the colonial conflicts looked at Kane like she'd lost her mind. Ma'am, we're outnumbered 50-1. If we abandon defensive positions, we'll lose colonies either way. Kane cut him off. The Zinthari can crack any defense we put up. They have the firepower and the experience. We try to hold ground, we die slow. But if we attack, we control the pace. We choose the battlefields. We make them react to us. She pulled up intelligence on Zinthari territory. They've been the Council's primary military force for 3,000 years. They've fought dozens of species. They've never lost a war. Know why? Because everyone fights them the same way. Everyone follows the same rules. Everyone tries to be civilized. Amy Foster caught on first. We're not going to fight fair. We're going to fight human. Kane smiled. The Zinthari have a dozen major shipyards. Massive facilities that build their fleet. They're all deep in their territory because nobody's ever been crazy enough to attack them at home. Their entire defensive doctrine assumes threats come from the frontier. The map zoomed in on a system 40 light-years inside Zinthari space, one of their core industrial worlds. Heavily populated, critical to their war machine. We're going to hit them here. Fast, hard. Make them pull their fleets back to protect their core. While they're scrambling, we evacuate our colonies, consolidate our forces, build more Prometheus-class ships. That's a suicide mission, someone said. We'd have to go through their entire defensive network. Not if we don't use the hyperspace lanes they monitor. Helen pulled up alternative routes. The Council species use established jump points. Safe. Predictable. We've been mapping unstable routes they consider too dangerous. High radiation, gravitational anomalies, random emergence points. Kane nodded. Council ships can't handle those routes. Too much risk. But our ships are smaller, more maneuverable, and we're willing to accept casualties. 50-50 chance our ships make it through. Probably lose half the fleet just getting there. The room went silent. Officers processed the implications, a coin flip whether you'd survive the journey, followed by an attack on one of the most heavily defended systems in the galaxy. Who's leading this? Greg asked quietly. I am. Kane's voice left no room for argument. I'm taking personal command of the 1st Prometheus Strike Force. 30 ships, 6,000 crew. If this works, we bloody their nose and buy time for evacuation. If it fails, I go down with the ship, and you all get to tell Earth I was insane. She looked around the room at faces she'd known for years. Good people, skilled officers. They deserved better than this desperate gamble. I'm not going to lie to you. Our odds aren't good. We're fighting species that mastered space warfare before our ancestors learned to make fire. We're using weapons we barely tested and tactics we developed in simulation. We're going up against fleets that have fought together for centuries. Kane pulled up the footage of Colony 7 one more time. Let them see it, remember it. But they killed our people and expected us to accept it. Expected us to file complaints and wait for justice that would never come. Expected us to know our place. She straightened. So we're going to teach them something. We're going to show them what happens when you mistake human civilization for human weakness. The officers stood as one. No cheering, no enthusiasm, just grim determination. They knew what was coming, knew most of them wouldn't survive the year. We launch in 60 hours. Dismissed. As the room emptied, Greg stayed behind. You know this is crazy, right? Even if you reach their shipyards, you can't destroy enough to matter. They'll rebuild. They'll come at us twice as hard. I know. Kane stared at the star map. But we're not trying to destroy their yards. We're trying to destroy their certainty. For 3,000 years, they've known they were untouchable, known their core worlds were safe. We're going to shatter that, make them afraid, make them wonder where we'll strike next. Terrorism? War. Kane corrected. They started it. We're just finishing it in a way they don't expect. 60 hours later, the Prometheus fleet assembled at the edge of the solar system. 30 ships, none of them larger than a destroyer by Council standards, each one packed with enough weapons to level a city. Around Earth, people watched the launch on every screen. This was it, humanity's first real strike back. Kane stood on the bridge of the flagship Phoenix, named for obvious reasons. Her crew was young, average age 20 to 6. Volunteers all. They knew the odds. All ships report ready, Admiral. Greg was staying behind to coordinate the evacuation. He deserved to see his family one more time. Most of Kane's crew didn't have that luxury. Open fleet-wide channel. Kane waited for the connection. 30 bridges. 30 crews, all watching her. We're about to do something the Council thinks is impossible. We're about to strike at the heart of an empire that stood for 3,000 years. Some of you won't make it back. Hell, most of you won't. But everyone back home will know you tried, will know you fought. She thought about her own family. Gone. Lost on Colony 7. Her sister. Her niece. People she'd promised to protect. The Council thinks we're primitives. Violent but controllable. They think putting us in a box will keep us manageable. They're about to learn what happens when you corner a predator and expect it to stay tame. Kane pulled up the navigation data, the unstable route that would either get them killed by cosmic radiation or deposit them in the heart of Synthari space. No middle ground. Helm execute jump sequence. All ships maintain formation. If you make it through, rally at the emergence point. If you don't, we'll see you on the other side. The fleet jumped. Reality twisted. The Phoenix's hull groaned under stresses it wasn't designed to handle. The unstable hyperspace route lit up their sensors with radiation warnings and gravitational shears. Kane watched the fleet status board as ships started disappearing. The Atlas, gone, emerged too close to a neutron star's gravity well, torn apart before they could correct. The Defiant, gone. Hull breached during transit. Lost all hands. The Guardian, gone. Emerged inside an asteroid field. No survivors. By the time the Phoenix dropped back into normal space, only 18 ships remained. 40% casualties, and they hadn't even reached the enemy yet. Damage report? Hull integrity at 70%. Radiation shielding burned out. Port weapons array offline. The damage control officer looked pale but functional. We're alive. Contact with surviving ships. Form up. Sensors, find me that shipyard. The Zinthari system sprawled before them. 3 inhabited planets, 24 stations. And the crown jewel, the orbital assembly complex where they built 60% of the Empire's war fleet. Ma'am, detecting defense platforms. Hundreds of them. And there's a defense fleet. 40 ships. They're mobilizing. Kane smiled. They weren't expecting company. Good. Weapons free. All ships engage at will. Primary target is the assembly complex. Everything else is secondary. The battle began with humanity's new favorite tactic, overwhelming violence applied without warning or mercy. The Prometheus ships opened fire with kinetic weapons that moved too fast for the Xinthari to intercept. Autonomous drones swarmed the defense platforms. Nanite missiles ate through shields like they weren't there. The Xinthari fleet responded with coordinated precision. They had experience, training, superior numbers. None of it mattered. The humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to hurt, to destroy as much as possible before dying. The Phoenix took fire from 3 directions. Shields collapsed. Hull plating vaporized. Kane felt the ship shaking apart around her, but kept firing. The assembly complex hung before them, massive and beautiful, and completely defenseless against weapons the Council had banned. All power to forward guns. One shot. Make it count. The Phoenix's main battery fired. A stream of projectiles moving at 40% of light speed. No shields could stop them. No armor could deflect them. They punched through the assembly complex like it was paper, and the facility's fusion reactors did the rest. The explosion was visible from 3-star systems away. Trillions of credits worth of infrastructure gone in an instant. Dozens of partially built warships destroyed. The Xinthari shipbuilding capacity cut by more than half. Kane watched it burn and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. All ships, withdraw. Jump on my mark. Only 7 ships made it back to the rally point. The Phoenix wasn't one of them. Kane's last message home was simple. Target destroyed. We made them bleed. Make it count. Back on Earth, the world watched the footage transmitted by the surviving ships, watched 18 human vessels take on an entire Xinthari system, watched them die fighting, watched them destroy the shipyard everyone said was invincible. Marcus Webb addressed the planet again that night. His words were simple. They wanted to teach us our place. Instead, we've taught them fear. This is just the beginning. Across human space, recruitment centers were overwhelmed. The Prometheus initiative went into full production. And in the Xinthari capital, the High Command finally understood the mistake they'd made. They hadn't fought humanity. They'd declared war on a species that had been fighting itself for its entire history, a species that knew how to lose everything and keep fighting anyway. The real war was just beginning, and humanity was done playing by anyone's rules but their own.